With us for more, Bharat Ramamurthy, former National Economic Council Deputy Director and author of The Bully Pulpit on Substack. It's must read. And Natasha Surin, president of the Budget Lab at Yale and former Treasury official. Okay, Bharat, I want you to break it down for us. How should we understand the role of TPS immigrants in our economy, right? Dare I ask, take humanity out of this and let's just talk finance.
From a purely economic perspective, this is a huge loss. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of workers, and the employment rate among TPS recipients is actually higher than it is among native-born workers. And they're often filling jobs that are not being filled by Americans. You talked about the healthcare sector. When I was in the White House, we were desperately trying to get more people to work in nursing homes, work as registered nurses. About 20,000 Haitians work in those fields. When those people are no longer working, that's not going to be beneficial for Americans. We're going to have longer wait times at hospitals. Maybe you can't find a nursing home for yourself or for a loved one. Those are painful impacts. And at the end of the day, these are taxpayers paying billions of dollars in taxes. They've been here for a decade plus in many cases. And removing them from this country is going to cause huge ripple effects across many industries.
Let's talk about these industries. And Bharat touched on it. The industries that they most commonly fill, construction, cleaning services, healthcare, these are the things that keep our society running, but also in some instances, as they keep costs down. If you now need to fill these jobs with American workers, it's going to cost a whole heck of a lot more. And if you have somebody in your family you need to put in an assisted living care, it is already hugely expensive.
Yeah, and you're already hearing from communities, particularly in Florida and Ohio, who are saying that they do not have workers that they can bring in to nursing homes in those communities to supplement the labor that they're going to lose. And what that's going to mean is it's going to mean closures and it's going to mean massive disruptions. And the numbers here are like kind of striking. I was listening to this segment that you aired, Steph, like $39 billion of contribution to U.S. GDP, to our economy, comes from TPS protected workers. So what we're doing today is like such a self-inflicted wound with respect to our economy, because these people are contributing in ways that there simply isn't alternatives with respect to domestic labor that can come in and staff these nursing homes and be nurses in these hospitals to the magnitude that's required.
But aren't we forgetting that? Because there's many cases where cities, states, or entire industries lobbied the government and said, we need to bring more immigrants in to fill these jobs or our businesses cannot operate.
Yeah, and I think not only that point, but it's also important to remember that every one of these immigrants is also a consumer. We have a very consumer-driven economy. And so when you have more people here with money in their pockets, and again, these are employed people who are paying taxes, who are making wage income, that's what drives business investment when you have higher demand. That's what drives hiring. So there's really this myth that immigration is people from abroad taking American jobs. On net, what's happening is that these people are creating demand that is causing more demand for workers overall, including U.S.-born workers. So it's really a lose-lose situation.
Then let's stay on this myth, this idea that if you start to deport people, that will open up more job opportunities for Americans. We already had a labor shortage. It's just not true.
Totally. And we know, in fact, there is a long body of academic evidence. Economists have been studying this question for decades. When you have more immigration into this country, precisely for the reasons that Bharat is describing, you get more businesses formed. You have more jobs for both domestic and foreign workers. And so you're in a situation where what you're doing is, in the name of this sort of like anecdote that people tell themselves, that if you have fewer immigrants in the country, somehow things are going to be better for people who live in the United States or who are native born. That's simply not true. It's not supported by the data, and it's not supported by fact.
Then where is this coming from? If it's not supported by data, it's not supported by fact. And again, the people we're talking about came into this country legally. So anyone who's arguing this is about, you know, caravans, illegal migrants crossing the border, none of it's even true. It has nothing to do with this specific group of people.
Yeah, I mean, look, based on the evidence, you have to say that it's about animus against people who don't look like us, who maybe speak a different language. But if you talk to people who live in these communities, these are their friends and their neighbors, the people that they see at the hospital, they see at the park, taking care of kids, or who are nannies and so on. And I think it's really driven by people who don't live in these communities, who believe that there's a desire in America to kick people out who don't look like us. But I don't think that's where the American people are.
Yeah. Here's a number that surprised me. According to the Brookings Institute, in 2025, more people left the United States then immigrated. What does that say about the long-term impact on our economy?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm so deeply concerned about is that the consequences of this type of a stance to immigration aren't magically going to be erased in a future administration. We, for so long, have been the beneficiary of being the country where if there are skilled entrepreneurs across the globe, where do they want to come to start their Fortune 500 company? They want to come to the United States. If there are people looking for the American dream and looking for opportunities for their children and for their grandchildren, where do they want to come? They want to come to the U.S. I worry that that special sauce, as we're approaching our 250th anniversary of what makes this country great, is in deep, deep threat. And frankly, that there might not be going back from the position that we're at.
And can I make one point on that? We saw for the first time a net outflow of people from the country.
Why?
But do you think that we saw the native-born employment rate shoot up? And that's the theory on the right wing. If people leave, that creates more jobs for Americans. Has it gone up? No, it hasn't. Right? So it has disproven this theory from the start.
Okay, I want to talk about one other thing before you all leave. I quickly want to note the markets have now been open the last 6 minutes. They're down almost 200 thus far. But inflation keeps rising. Gas is dropping. That's a good thing. But it's still just under $4 a gallon. What kind of pressure does this put on the Fed and its new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh? We know Donald Trump wants rates cut.
Yeah, pretty significant pressure, right? Because we're in a situation where if you think about the Federal Reserve's mandate, what its job is, it's supposed to care about two things. It's supposed to care about what's happening in the labor market and what's happening with respect to inflation. The labor market is actually holding up pretty okay. Mm-hmm. There are some signs of weakness that are starting to occur, particularly for younger workers, but it's actually doing quite well. Inflation is up above 4% in its most recent print, the worst inflation reading that we've seen in the last 3 years. And so anyone looking at those facts is going to say this is not a moment to be contemplating cutting interest rates. It's actually a moment to be contemplating raising interest rates.
Yeah, I think that we're at a point where it's more likely that the next rate move is up, not down. I think that you can't cut interest rates when headline inflation is above 4%. And Donald Trump chose Kevin Warsh because he thought that he would give him a lower interest rate environment. But the thing to remember is that Kevin Warsh has to run a committee. And if he can't get the other committee members to agree with him that it's time to cut rates, he's going to be ineffective. And I just don't see how you can make that case persuasively to 12 other people that it's time to cut rates.
And we don't know that he's trying to make that case. Kevin Warsh wanted this job and wanted to convince Donald Trump to give him this job. But he's a skilled guy. He deeply understands the economy. He understands labor. He understands markets. I'm not so sure he's trying to convince those other Fed governors to cut rates.